Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Isla Campbell, live in Fayetteville, and I'm a native Arkansan. I'm a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a retired history teacher, and I'm vice chair of Washington County Moms for Liberty. When I was 10 years old, I first began my appreciation for the legislative process when I watched my dad be sworn in as an Arkansas state legislator. And for the next 35 years, I watched him be committed to his constituency and to his community. And so I applaud you all. The public forum is not very kind at times, and I'm sure that your phone is blowing up and giving you evidence of that. So I want to thank you for that. But I am here today voicing my support for Senate Bill 294. I have always been a supporter of public schools, and I still am. And until a few years ago, I was not a proponent of school choice. Being raised in a small community in southeast Arkansas, I am very much a product of a small school and its community, and I understand how important small schools are to their communities. School choice is not a condemnation nor an attack on public schools. I strongly believe it is a choice to provide a better education for all Arkansas children. Times have changed, and many of the changes that we're finding in our public schools are being described as progressive and necessary contributors to much needed fundamental and structural changes in American institutions, cultures, values, and principles. Some of these changes are being met with a great deal of opposition, questions, and concern. After being forced to respond to a FOIA, my district rendered 11,000 plus pages of documentation proving the presence of critical race theory in our schools. Now let me, as a history teacher, define from my perspective, when I refer to critical race theory in this context, it's talking about critical race theory's ideology being taught as a prism through which instructional materials are developed, school policies are created, and values and the environmental culture of our schools are affected. This morning, you should have received some documentation from this FOIA material that would substantiate my statements. It's difficult to mount a rebuttal claiming the absence of CRT in our schools when professional development, defining its content as being built on the 6 tenets of critical race, is presented to our teachers and administrators in the district. Or when teacher book talks promoting America as a white supremacist nation are being read in our schools. Or when a teacher's email voices their concern over the effect of changing classroom focus from rigor and merit to one of equity, and then increasing the number of minority students in AP classes regardless of preparedness. What an injustice to those students, and what an academic corruption of advanced placement classes. The goal of increasing minority participation in AP classes is certainly one that we should all have and work toward. However, to do so, we must do a better job of preparing all our students to meet their academic potential, not lower academic standards in the name of equity. Rather, we raise academic standards of instruction. We listen to our teachers and parents about how best to challenge every student. And we do this in a learning environment that values self-determination and achievement. We also promote individual responsibility with the goal of dreaming your dreams and attaining them. We're spending more money than ever before per child, and the results have not produced overall student success. The status quo is no longer acceptable. The last few years, we have seen a decline in school ratings and student achievement scores across our state. Yet, while our kids are behind academically, Schools are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion plans that are embedded with critical race ideology shaping curriculum.
Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
your time is up. If you'd like to finalize that
Yes.
last point.
Yes, I will. So what I would say to you is that achieving equity must not be our goal in the public education realm, but it must be achieving equal opportunities, enabling every student to accomplish and reach their individual potential. School choice is a major step in achieving that, and I now ask you to support Senate Bill 294.
Ms. Campbell, will you take questions?
I will.
Great. Ms. Representative Charlene Fight, you're recognized.
Thank you for your testimony. I'm just curious as to your father's name.
N.B. Murphy.
Thank you.
Representative Flowers, you're recognized.
Thank you for your remarks. I'm just wondering, as someone who was a history teacher, how I don't even know where to start. As a history teacher,
Yes.
You have spoken about your concerns with regard to critical race theory and given your definition of it. But as critical race theory is a legal, largely a legal and academic theory, mostly taught in law schools. I mean, that's what we're aware of. How is it that you believe, as a history teacher, that any theory should be banned from discussion or thought?
I don't believe I said that. I would like to clarify. I don't think I used the word ban, nor would I ever support that. My point on critical race theory, and I think some would take exception with you with your definition of it being only in legal circles and in higher institutions, because we've seen that change. That has been a change. That's where it started, yes. But what I'm talking about is the critical race ideology that is now being used in many schools as the prism and the premise through which educational and academic courses and curriculum are being developed. That, to me, is a bias. That is not teaching our children how to think, but what to think. To me, that is indoctrination. As a history teacher, I taught all the isms. Communism, socialism. We talked about all of the religions. The isms, yes. And what I'm saying is that critical race theory has now, I would teach critical race theory as a theory, but I would not use it as a lens through which I would create my instruction in the classroom. I think that's something that is taking place. I see that in my school district, and I have evidence to show that.
Follow up, Mr. Chair.
You're recognized for a follow-up.
I didn't try to, I guess, restate something you stated. I'm just basing my question on the fact that the bill bans critical race theory. And as a history teacher who I imagine has taught the history of the enslavement of people, of Jim Crow, of the oppression against women, of laws that really validated and made legal lynchings of people or preventing people from being able to vote. I'm just wondering how understanding those different aspects of history in the world and history in this country, how you would state that that equity is not important and critical to educating children, and that equity shouldn't be a goal when division and inequity and racism and sexism has clearly been an integral part of the history of the country. Whether or not you believe it's systemic, and we could argue about that, I'm just wondering, as a history teacher, understanding that has been a part of the history, how you would testify that equity is somehow not inextricably tied to rigor.
One of our teachers from the high school voiced concerns about the fact that as equity became more of a focus in our district, there was a reduction in vigor, in rigor, and merit in our classroom. And I'd like just to point out that there's a misunderstanding by many, and I respectfully acknowledge that we may have a different perspective, but equity and equality is not the same. As determined,
I know that. Yeah.
As determined,
Ms. Campbell,
yes.
I'm going to cut you off here.
Sure.
This is turning into a debate on the
Yes.
definition of critical race theory between you and Representative Flowers, and that's not speaking for the bill or against the bill. So,
Right, I agree.
So we're going to stop there. Seeing no other questions, thank you for your testimony.
Yes, thank you.
To speak against